Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Strathbogie Council meeting for Tuesday, the 18th of May. I'm the Mayor, Chris Rayburn, Councillor Chris Rayburn. This meeting is held in accordance with the Strathbogie Shire's governance rules and the Ministerial Good Practice Guidelines, MGPG-1, for virtual meetings. However, I wish to announce that for the first time in over a year, our public gallery is opened, and I will say it's full. And I'd like to welcome all those who have come along this evening. So welcome to our first meeting in the gallery since March 2020. So welcome and hopefully you'll enjoy our meeting. I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land which we are meeting, the Tungarung clan. I pay my respects to their elders past and present. Outline on how the meeting will work. As I just said, our public gallery is now open. However, we are still complying with the COVID-19 regulations set by the state government, so we are able to operate safely. We will continue to live stream our meetings through our website, so as many people as possible can view these proceedings. I want to take this opportunity to outline the voting at today's meeting will be held by a show of hands. If a councillor has a conflict of interest in a matter, they will be asked to leave the meeting, and no discussion on the matter will commence until we are sure that they have done so. Councillors will rejoin the meeting after the matter has been considered and voted concluded. If we have any technical difficulties during today's meeting or tonight's meeting, which means we're unable to broadcast the meeting to the public, we will adjourn the meeting for 15 minutes. If the issue is not resolved after this time, we will extend the adjournment or decide to continue with proceedings given the meeting is now open to the public who have attended, and we no longer solely rely on our website to broadcast the meeting. All right, councillors, do we have any apologies or leave of absence? Nope. Okay. Disclosure of conflict of interest. Councillors, do we have conflict of interest tonight? Councillor Binks, Councillor Hayes-Burke. What items, please?
Thanks, Mayor Rayburn. I have a conflict of interest with item number 9.8, training expenses, L. Binks.
Thank you. Councillor Hayes-Burke.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a conflict of interest in relation to 9.1 planning permit application for the use of recycling scrap metal. What should I say?
Yes,
handling yard on 30 Boundary Road, North Euroa, and in relation to 9.7 training and development expenses for me. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. All right. Confirmation of minutes of previous meetings. Would some councillor like to move the last minutes of our council meeting be received? Councillor Murray, Councillor Hayes-Burke. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. Okay. Petitions. CEO Solomon, do we have any petitions?
Through you, Mayor, no, there are none.
Thank you. Reports from Mayor and councillors. As always, the Mayor goes first. Tonight, I want to take this opportunity to thank all our hard-working volunteers in our Shire and acknowledge the significant role they play in building inclusive and resilient communities. This week is National Volunteer Week, and as to thank our local volunteers today, Council hosted a morning tea and a film at the Euroa Community Centre. Cinema, sorry. I want to take the opportunity tonight to thank all those who attended and each and every person in our Shire who gives up their time to help others. We appreciate your hard work. Also, I wanted to quickly touch tonight on the next steps of our community engagement program as we develop our community vision, council plan and 2021 budget. If you haven't been to the www.share.strathbogie.vic.gov.au already, I urge you to jump on board. It's our dedicated online community engagement platform, and it's where you can contribute ideas and provide feedback, exchange views with others on key decisions and priorities for our community. We are now calling for feedback on the draft budget, on the community vision and the council plan, on the proposed partial road closure on the Arawa Tip Road, and for expressions of interest to join the Kerwins Bridge Community Panel. All these important topics we need your advice to help our decision making, and we are very much open to our community to contribute to our discussions, and we very much appreciate it. Councillors around the table, Councillor Horrigan, Councillor Dickinson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to acknowledge our staff for the hard work that they put in order to successfully achieve the $3 million grant for the boardwalk around Lake Ngambie. Big job, long time coming, but we got it. Thank you.
Pleasure. Councillor Binks.
Thanks, Mayor Rayburn. I've got a bit of a long report.
Yes, okay.
So my month started with a very busy Anzac Day. I joined Councillor Murray in Longwood for the Anzac Day March and wreath laying in a fabulous service organised by Liza Heerman and Peter Zaccato. Liza's commitment to having Anzac Day service in Longwood is commendable, and I was sorry to have to leave proceedings to make an appearance at the Euroa Anzac Day ceremonies. Euroa Anzac Day ceremony was incredibly well attended, and I had the honour of laying a wreath in the absence of Councillor Hayes-Burke and Councillor Horrigan. Again, I was sorry to have to leave the ceremony early to make my way to Strathbogie, where Joan and Alan Wood had organised an Anzac Day ceremony at the War Memorial in Main Street, Strathbogie. After laying a bouquet on behalf of Strathbogie Shire councillors and staff, I was able to remain for the full service and a photo to mark the occasion with the Mount Wombat Ward community. After a very busy series of services, I was home when I realised I'd attended 3 Anzac Day services and not had a single Anzac biscuit. We had a pretty busy week with ministers visiting. The Honourable Marianne Thomas, Minister for Regional Development and Minister for Agriculture, along with members of Regional Development Victoria, met with councillors to discuss ongoing challenges and current opportunities for the Strathbogie Shire, as mentioned. Maybe. The Honourable Sean Lean, Minister for Local Government, was in Avenel to announce Living Libraries Infrastructure Program in partnership with Goulburn Valley Regional Libraries Corporation, and that was a really great announcement. We're going to have a library cupboard in Avenel, but it's great to see our library service being expanded. I know I'm a huge advocate of our libraries. And then at the end of the month, was actually 1st of May, I attended the 2021 Australian Local Government Women's Association Conference, Culture, Conduct, Retention, hosted by the City of Yarra. Following Auntie Annette Gibeiro's Welcome to Country and opening address by the City of Yarra Mayor, Councillor Gabrielle De Vitri, the morning session was a deep conversation between Dr. Helen Haynes, Federal Member for Indi, and Winsome McCackey AO, ex-Mayor of the City of Melbourne, discussing women's ways of knowing, doing and sharing power. Given the current behaviours coming to light at the federal level, and the recent Victoria Attorney General Office report into sexual harassment in local government, this was a lengthy and dynamic conversation around how we can work within the current patriarchal models of government we work in. Jill Gallagher AO shared with us her experience on leadership in the field of advancing Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander health and wellbeing. We heard the incredible story of Maggie Toko, CEO of VIMAC, Victoria's peak consumer body for consumers of mental health services. Maggie is a strong advocate for growing consumer leadership across all sectors, forging change to enable mental health systems that is consumer-driven. Her personal story of living with paranoid schizophrenia whilst maintaining leadership roles is an inspiring one of removing the stigma of those living with mental health challenges. Many more inspiring speakers spoke with us during the day. However, it was, without a doubt, the keynote address by lawyer and human rights advocate, she's probably an activist as well, I think Nidal Nguyen, that left us committed to being fierce advocates for truth-telling, anti-racism, and including the experiences and opinions of minorities in our places of power. By far, the most beneficial aspect of the conference was the opportunity to connect with 200 other women in local government. The chance to discuss common wins, challenges and opportunities was so helpful at this stage in my term as a newly elected councillor, and I'm confident that the connections I made will be of great value to my ongoing role in local government. Already, I've made contact with fellow councillors on the Goulburn Valley Waste Forum that I'm actually also on, representing Strathbogie. Some councillors have shared how their council are facing similar challenges of strategy and policy, and I've begun to discuss potential partnerships between other councils. The peer-to-peer learning in opportunities such as the Australian Local Government's Women's Association Conference are crucial to understanding how the local government sector is operating across the state. I was particularly thrilled to have had the chance to speak with Pam Robinson AO, who was a councillor and president of Violettown Shire when I was a child. Since reconnecting, she has offered her ongoing support and mentoring, which is really exciting. My takeaways from the 2021 Australian Local Government Women's Association Conference are: remember to shout out the wins of local government, thinking about the legacy I want to leave for women to come, retreat is not defeat, and to disagree with grace and empathy. Thank you, Mayor Rayburn.
Thank you, Councillor Binks, for your informative and delightful presentation. Councillor Deputy Mayor Lykos.
I just want to say how exciting it was also, Reg, to get that $3 million grant come through, and again just acknowledge the work that was done by the staff. It's been a long time and a lot of work put into it, so thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to echo some of those comments that Councillor Binks talked about in terms of the Anzac Day. I think there were lots of Anzac Days around the Shire that were well organised, and it was great to see Anzac Day celebrated again or remembered again post-COVID. So in that way, and I certainly thank Lisa from down in Longwood for that, her efforts there. I continue to go down to the Daily Dose down at Avenel every Friday and sit there, rain, hail or shine, speaking to local residents. So I'd encourage anyone from Avenel to come and have a chat at some stage with me on those Fridays. I went to an Avenel Active meeting last week. Those Avenel Active meetings, they have a great turnout, and they're always very keen. And I also went to the Renewable Energy Avenel meeting with Molly Odgers, one of the council staff here who deals with environmental issues, and we were progressing some solar energy hub options for that community. And there are plenty of people in this room probably who could give other advice as well, and perhaps I'll call on some of the experts in the community of Euroa too to assist Avenel in progressing their ideas about the use of solar energy in different ways. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Haysbert.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Binks, for attending the Anzac Day ceremony on our behalf. We couldn't be there. It's sad to miss it. Hopefully we'll be there next year. I attended the Greening Euroa committee meeting this month, which we're pretty excited because we're at the stage where we're about to get a design outline for where the piping and infrastructure is going to run. I think for most of you here, you might not know what Greening Euroa is, or you might, but it's a project where we're getting second grade water from Euroa and treating it to a level where it's okay to be putting on our sporting facilities, and that infrastructure is going to be laid soon as we get the funding, which we're predicting will be about $3 million. But at this stage, we have a consultant drawing up a design, and there's schools, sporting facilities, and we're keen to get more groups involved if they're interested. So I know the Lions Club, who wasn't initially part of the project, has put up their hand to be a part of it because the pipe infrastructure will run past the Lions Park. And so essentially it's about the sporting clubs and schools getting the tanks on site so that then they'll have somewhere to store this second grade water so that then it can be pumped back into keeping our grounds lush and keeping the school children happy and our sporting ovals green all year round, which is a really exciting project, and we're really a blueprint for this design, I think, in Australia. So we just need to get the community excited about it really now, because we would need to drum up some support and get that infrastructure built in the community, in the schools and in the sporting ovals, so that we can actually make sure it is a feasible project and lasts long into the future, because it will definitely be needed in this perpetual drought sort of environment that we find ourselves in. I also wanted to say thanks to all the volunteers. I mean, you can't really say thanks enough to the volunteers. They really are the fabric of our society, and that was really lovely today. We had a morning tea, so I got to meet a few of them that I didn't already know. I won't hold us up anymore. Thanks. Thanks, Mayor. Thanks.
Hey, Councillor Haysberg. Just one thing I did forget in my little speech here tonight is, which Councillor Deputy Mayor Lycos just reminded me of, that Ngambie is in one of the finalists for the tourist towns of Victoria. So we need all our community to vote for it. So we become part of the tourist system, which at the moment the state government doesn't believe we are part of the tourist system, but we would like to be noted, and we are a great place to visit and to enjoy. So it's one thing. So thank you, councillors. I very much appreciate your reports. Public question time. Thanks, CEO.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, there are two questions from the public this evening. The first question is from Rosalind Ma of Euroa, who asks, does council have process or independent ombudswoman that ratepayers can make a submission to where they feel council's personnel have been unresponsive to ratepayers' requests? And in response, thank you for your question, Ms. Ma. In relation to your question, which I have already answered in an email to you, the Ombudsman contact details are as follows. And you just log on to the homepage of the Victorian Ombudsman to lodge a complaint online, or alternatively you can call 1800 806 314 for regional residents. Also, under the new Local Government Act 2020, it is a requirement of councils to develop a complaints policy by the end of 2021. Therefore, council will be developing a new policy in the coming months. There is also the ability for community members to report an issue via a link on our website homepage, home@Strathbogie Shire Council, under I want to. Or they can raise a customer request through the customer service or with their ward councillor. And thank you for your question. The second question is from Hon On, who asks, how much of the land completed house per year is charged at Allura Lake Ngambie? Does it have gas supplies at the development? So thank you for your question, Ms. On. In answer, Unfortunately, we are not able to advise what the rates will be for any property within Strathbogie Shire without knowing the capital improved value, or CIV, of the property as provided to us by the Valuer General's Department. Should you be looking to purchase in the area, and upon application through your conveyancer or solicitor, you will be provided with a land information certificate which shows the current rates of the property on which you're inquiring about. If the property has not been developed, then of course the land information certificate will show the rates as being for vacant land based on the CIV being the same as the site value. Once you've gone through the process to build on the property, the valuers will revalue the property, providing a new CIV, which council will then use to rate the property from the effective date of the new CIV, which will include the land and any improvements, house, garage, shedding, etc. As for the question on gas availability, I would suggest that you contact a local real estate agent or gas provider who will also be able to advise you more appropriately. It is my belief that residents who wish to use gas currently need to be set up for bottled gas only. I hope the above is of assistance to you, and thank you for your inquiry. And thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, CEO. Before we close the question time, for the benefit of the gallery, we have question time forms in the foyer should you wish to ask a question of council at the June meeting. So there's forms out there. If you want to fill them in for the next meeting, you can do so. So now we move on to officers' reports. We have members of the public wishing to address the meeting on an item tonight. Under our governance rules, all parties have 5 minutes in which to speak. Councillors may ask questions of clarification to the submitter, but there will be no debate. So the first item tonight is 9.1, planning permit application number P2020-125, use of land for transfer station, loading and unloading and handling of scrap metal, including vehicles and signage, 30 Boundary Road, Euroa. Oh, Councillor Haysberg has actually left the room, so I don't have to ask for any conflicts. So while I wait for the door to close. Okay, Director Tingo, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. I'll just provide a brief summary for councillors before we hear from our submitters this evening. So the proposal is for the use of land for a transfer station and associated signage at 30 Boundary Road North in Euroa. The application was advertised and initially we received 6 objections. As a result of consultation with objectors, 2 objections were withdrawn. Council was notified by one of the objectors who had withdrawn that they would like to change their position on the application and re-object to the proposal. A number of additional submissions have been received as at the day of the hearing of this application, and this application is being heard before council due to a number of unresolved submissions. This application was heard before council at the March council meeting, and it was determined at that meeting that council would like to receive reports from the applicant in regards to the generation of noise to enable the applicants and objector to negotiate a satisfactory working arrangement for further consideration by council. The applicant did engage a consultant to undertake the assessment, and the report was submitted to council. A copy of this report was also provided to one of the objectors to allow them to peruse the application and the information contained within it. Council also referred that report off to the EPA, so the Environmental Protection Authority, and also council's Environmental Health Officer. The EPA confirmed that their referral comments made in the letter dated the 17th of December 2020 remain their assessment of the proposal. The subsequent environmental impact assessment forwarded by council does not change our assessment, so the EPA assessment, to provide conditional consent to the application as outlined in correspondence 17th of December. In our referral comments, we assessed potential environmental and amenity impacts and determined the facility should be able to manage its impacts if managed appropriately. And they also mentioned, this is the EPA, we also want to bring to the applicant's attention their responsibility to manage the site mindful of their lawful obligations under the Environment Protection Act 1970 more broadly. Council's Environmental Health Officer responded advising that the EPA are the relevant authority commenting on the report, and they had no further comments to make. In addition, there was no further meetings undertaken between the applicant or objectors. It is recommended that Council resolve to issue a notice of decision to grant a permit in accordance with the officer's recommendation. And through you, Mayor, there are a number of submitters who would like to speak to this item this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Councillors, do you have any questions of the officer? Okay, we have an objectors representative, Mr. Tasman Jones from Songbowen Planning, who wishes to make a presentation to Council this evening. Good evening, Mr. Jones.
Good evening, Mayor.
I give you have 5 minutes to make your presentations. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll make this quick. I have a lot to cover, so apologies if it may seem rushed. These submissions are made on behalf of the butter factory. They follow from the previous March Council meeting where the applicant was asked to provide an acoustic report. This has since been peer reviewed by Clarity Acoustics. Concerningly, it's found the report has overlooked 3 noise-sensitive receivers directly adjacent to the subject site, closer than the single receiver identified at 31 Graham Street. Identifying nearby residences is the easiest part of the report. This oversight is extremely concerning and should be sounding alarm bells to any responsible authority. These findings should also be the starting point to question the accuracy of the proposal before us, particularly when it was known that a car crusher would be used, however not accounted for in the recently drafted acoustic report. Off-site impacts of waste transfer stations are well known to planning officers in peri-urban areas, as they easily breach their permit or operate without one. Although permit conditions seek to enforce and limit off-site impacts, seldom do they do operators comply. So far, we have telltale signs that the proposal has set the bar low to obtain a permit, albeit that the omission of vital information such as a car crusher, concurrent background noise levels, and the acknowledgement of sensitive noise receptors immediately to the north. We hardly have a true indication of the impacts to residents, butter factory, and the tourism industry in general. With regard to the planning processes, what's concerning is the manner in which the application has been handled on the outset. Why wasn't the acoustic report a prerequisite? The planning scheme provides clear guidance on the use of land applications in industrial zones. It asks what are the likely effects on the neighbourhood need to be accounted for. Noise obviously being one of the key considerations. Worryingly, the professional noise impact assessment was only requested at the last council meeting. In deciding applications, council must consider the effect that the use may have on nearby existing or proposed residential areas or other uses which are sensitive to industrial offsite effects. EPA, a relevant authority, a referral authority, has been offered an incomplete report to provide comment and conditions on. What's troubling are the conditions of permit offered which require residents to articulate the impacts after the use has started. This is not the role of locals to be burdened with. EPA should be offered a comprehensive report as outlined by the peer review to fully determine the impacts to the area. The handling of public notice raises a number of concerns. It allowed for extensive advertising to 45 properties, however, did not include an acoustic report or advise that a car crusher would be proposed. Council continued with supporting an application on the basis that only 6 objections in total were received initially. This is not justification that there are no impacts. To date, 11 objections from local businesses, 7 from neighbouring residential and 3 from local business areas have been provided today. Council's report says that the proposal meets the objectives of the Strathbogie planning scheme. We say it does not. The waste transfer station, a significant misalignment with the municipal profile and Council's mission, which seeks to foster sustainable economic and community development by engaging the community to develop a shared vision for the future, has not been well implemented. The local response from objectors is enough to say that a waste transfer station is not part of the shared vision for the future of Euroa. Council's economic direction is not aligned in supporting heavy industrial uses. It's aligned with its rural hinterland, its heritage and tourism industry. Local policy for Euroa defines the village as a weekend and short break destination. Its continued role as a rural drop-in service centre should not be at the cost of eroding the tourism trade and the amenity of the existing residents on a northern gateway location to Euroa. Is worthy of maintenance and enhancement. This will fall into this rural village has a relationship with its rural hinterland and the areas showcased in events and products supporting related industries such as accommodation and event spaces are truly part of this.
Excuse me.
This policy supports, yes.
You, to go back a minute a bit, because you became very gargled and we couldn't understand what you were saying during what? Go back probably a minute.
About a minute. Okay, thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
Dropped it.
It's likely to be around the council report says the proposal meets the objectives of the Strathbogie planning scheme.
Yep.
We say it does not. Am I still coming in clear, Mayor?
You're breaking up slightly. Stop the video.
For the poor,
just
connection.
Stop the video. Just speak on your mic. So here you go now.
Okay. Has that improved?
Yep.
Thank you. Council report says that the proposal meets the objectives of the Strathbogie planning scheme. We say it does not. The waste transfer station is a significant misalignment with the municipal profile and council's mission, which seeks to foster sustainable economic and community development by engaging the community to develop a shared vision for the future, has not been implemented well. The local response from objectors is enough to say that a waste transfer station is not part of the shared vision for the future of Euroa.
30 seconds. You dropped out? You there, Tasman?
Sorry, it's a poor connection from here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hello?
No, you're cutting in and out.
Am I coming in clear?
There you are. No.
Hello? Yes. Okay. Hello?
No, you're dropping in and out. I'm sorry. All right.
From the stance of objectives and the ongoing operational response of the Butter Factory, functioning as a reception and event facilitator, proposed operation of the waste transfer station are untenable to a site that hosts weddings, private functions and boutique accommodation. The Butter Factory has future aspirations with local policy to develop their site for additional accommodation enhanced, evidenced by a council letter to a pre-application by state November 2020. In overview, the waste transfer station will have significant off-site noise impacts. These impacts are not reconcilable with neighbouring sites.
30 seconds.
Viably underpin their success on the existing natural resource of rural tranquility. A lost resource should a permit be issued.
Thank you, Bernard. Okay. Any other objector who would like to speak tonight? Is there any other objector? Okay. Yeah. All right, the applicant, you ready to make a submission?
I think so. So, Spencer's.
Sweats, yeah. Pleasure. No worries. Don't forget to turn the mic on.
My computer on, please.
Yep.
Sorry, just in response to Tasman. So we've decided to get rid of the car crusher.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was discussed with Emma today. So that's the main concern. We'll just remove it all together. It's going to cost me more on logistics, but I'm happy to do that. The neighbours on the map there, I was with them today and they said they felt bullied along with other neighbours by the roll factory that's been going around, saying they're a tip and bullying people into objecting against us. The height restrictions address that concern. So there's not going to be cars stacked 10 high. You can't see over the fence. I've addressed every single concern that the butter factories come out with. I thought it was quite funny that Ms Hayes here is excited about recycling water and yet not getting grief about recycling metal from the family. So, it's quite comical. But anyway, Spet's here to talk about the sound report that we have done.
Okay.
Can I use that power?
Yeah, please do. No worries. We have sustainable power here. Well, actually, next Thursday night, we'll be signing a document, I believe. I'm not sure yet.
Oh, okay. Is that solar power?
No, the sun's gone down.
Not yet. Not yet. Just to introduce myself, my name is Svetimir. I'm an acoustic consultant engaged by Jared to do independently noise assessment for the site. We have been advised by the Jared that, just open the document, please. There you go. That the car crusher will not be used on the site.
Okay.
And accordingly, basically, we did the noise prediction modeling without car crusher. So with that, basically, the site complies with the noise limit by noise in the regional Victoria guidelines provided by the EPA. That guideline is 1411. And it's free to look at on the website, the EPA website. And the site really complies with those noise limits for the day, evening, and obviously the site doesn't work. It's not operational during the night period. Yeah, correct. So during the day, I believe it's just during the day, Jared, isn't it? The site will be operational. So during the day operation, the site complies with the noise limits provided by the EPA in the noise guidelines 1411. So regarding the noise issues, I don't see any issue with the site operation. Basically, all modeling, prediction model has been done for the nearest noise sensitive receivers. And for the nearest noise sensitive receivers, the site complies fully operational, which means basically without car crusher, obviously. So with forklift operation, and Jared, you can help me out as well.
Yeah,
excavator, mobile equipment as well, including trucks. Including the trucks as well, and including beepers. We advised the client, Jared, to use, instead of tonal beepers, to use broadband beepers, which are less intrusive. And those broad beepers they already have on the site, and they cannot be heard except a few meters on the site. Reversible beepers, tonal reversible beepers. We have a number of industrial sites where we advise the clients and the operations manager to use those broadband beepers to reduce the impact of the surrounding environment. So that's the one thing, and the site already have that. So there'll be, in my opinion, there'll be no tonal impact of the reverse beepers in the surrounding environment. Regarding the operation, that operation, with the modeling used, complies with the noise limit provided in the documentation NRV 1411, which is 53 decibels. for the day period.
All right, is that your submission?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, do you have any questions of the applicant? Or do you have any questions of the objector? Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, councillors, we have a officer's recommendation which has been printed on page 3, which has to be now amended to take in the fact that the car crusher is no longer being part of this development. Do I have someone who'd like to move this recommendation?
Through you, Mayor, I'd like to make an amendment similar to what you were just talking about. So it is long, so I will read it to everyone. I'd like to amend the recommendation to prohibit the use of the car crusher on site. Amend condition 1 to read, prior to the commencement of any works on site, amended plans must be submitted to and approved by the responsible authority and Goulburn Broken Catchment Management Authority. The plans must be generally in accordance with the plan submitted with the application, but include the following details. Site, landscape, signage, car parking plans, removing reference to the compactor. B, amended emergency response procedure, flip chart to include an amended site plan. C, notation included the storage of scrap cars must not be stacked higher than the current fence. D, plans must be in accordance with the Goulburn Broken Catchment Management Authority conditions 37, 38, 39 and 40. Also amend condition 5.4 to read signage plan. Also to amend condition 10 to read, unless with the prior written consent from the responsible authority, the use hereby permitted may only operate between the following hours: Monday to Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m, Saturdays 9 a.m. to 12 p.m, per the EPA guidelines for the industrial noise. Delete condition 11 and insert a new condition 11 under the heading amenity to read, the compaction of cars must not occur on site. Renumber the remaining conditions accordingly.
Okay, thank you, councillor. Is there a second of councillor Dickinson? Okay, councillor, you may speak to this motion.
I'd like to thank everyone that got their objections in, and reading through it, I completely understand regarding the noise. And the fact that we didn't actually have a noise report on the car compactor, and also the amenity of how high that we stacked the cars. So thank you also to the applicant for speaking on that today. A couple of reasons why there is an amendment. It is in an industrial zone, and it is an industrial what's been put forward, and so that industrial zone is not new. It has been there, and also in regards that there were extra letters sent to adjacent, but also on top of that, there was a notice in November that was advertised what was going in there, and we also did discuss it during the March council meeting. So it has been tabled.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Dickinson.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a recycling depot, including vehicles that are of no further use. So it's good for our environment that we're getting rid of those cars, but they're not being crushed. Not here anyway. It's in this site is in an industrial area. It's well fenced off, and cars won't be visible from the roadway. It fits the conditions of use and will employ up to 5 people.
Thank you, councillor Dickinson. Any other councillor like to speak for or against this, please? Councillor Murray.
I'd like to speak against the motion. I believe that this transfer station, this proposed development will reduce the community's amenity and increase the noise emissions in that area. I also believe that this proposal does not protect the community's amenity, the commercial amenity around the site, but is at odds with the amenity of that particular area, I do believe that this development will have potential off-site impacts to the area, such as with transfer of these materials and the use of the roads and so on by heavy vehicles past some of the commercial properties in the area. So I do not believe that this proposal is compatible with the adjoining or nearby land uses. I think the nearby land uses are completely different and completely incompatible with this particular land use. And I do not believe that it avoids those incompatibilities, this motion. So I note that there is an undertaking by the applicants, and I note the many objectors that have written, many of our ratepayers have written about their objections to this development. I believe that the proposal is likely to cause a material detriment to a pre-existing business in proximity to the proposal, and for that reason I cannot support the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Binks.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. I also wish to speak against the motion, and I echo Councillor Murray's concerns. I don't think it is the appropriate development for the area, and this kind of comes back to our issue of our planning zones and our need to review those, which is on the cards. But yeah, I cannot see how a facility of this capacity is in keeping with the current land use and existing operations in the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Lochos, do you want to speak? No. Okay. Okay, councillors, I'll now hand it back to Councillor Horrigan to close the discussion.
I think I would just like to close it with the importance of, I suppose, applicants and objectors meeting together. The objections, majority of them talked about the car crusher, and this amendment stops that. I know one objector said that had the car crusher be removed, then they would be happy for this to go ahead. They understand the importance of recycling, and we've been talking a lot about climate and upgrading our cars to ensure their batteries. So what do we do with our old cars? What do we do with the metal from our old cars? So in keeping with that, I just wanted to make that point that the car crusher being removed does reduce that noise. And I don't believe that the hours that they're operating with the machete that's being used currently already in the industrial area has an impact on that particular business. Although I do agree that had the car crusher been remained, it would have been a different story. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. All right, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried.
For division?
Yeah, no worries. Division, all those in favour? Councillor Horrigan, Councillor Dickinson, Councillor Lykos, Councillor Rayburn. Those against? Councillor Binks, Councillor Murray. Thank you. Okay, page 39, 9.2, planning application received, a planning application determined.
Excuse me, Mayor Rayburn, I will just get Councillor Haysbert.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Now I'll read that. Page 39, 9.2, planning application received and planning application determined. 1st to the 30th of April 2021. Director Tingay.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. Item 9.2 lists all planning applications received and all planning applications determined for the period of 1 to the 30th of April 2021. It is noted that there were 11 planning applications received and 11 planning applications determined during this period. There's a recommendation on page 40 of the agenda for Council's consideration. Thanks, Mayor Rayburn.
Thank you, Director. Councillors, do you have any questions of the officer? If not, someone like to put a recommendation forward? a motion forward for the recommendation as printed. Councillor Murray, there is a motion, please.
I move that the recommendation be adopted. Do I need to read it?
No.
Mayor?
All right, seconder, Councillor Lykos. Do you want to speak any further on the issue? Councillor Lykos? No. Okay, councillors, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. Okay, page 47, tender for contract number 20/21-21, provision of architectural building design, drafting and surveying services. Director Tingay.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. Item 9.3 looks for council to appoint a panel of suppliers to undertake the provision of architectural building design, drafting services, surveying services. Through our procurement process, officers went out to seek quotations for the panel of suppliers. At the closure of the advertising period, we had 37 submissions that were received. Following the procurement process and the evaluation period, that list came down to 23 suppliers. So we are therefore recommending that 23 suppliers be appointed to the panel of suppliers for the provision of architectural building design, drafting and surveying services. Thank you, Mayor Rayburn.
Director. Councillors, do you have any questions of the officer? If not, someone like to move the recommendation which has been put in front of us, please? Councillor Binks, would you like to move the recommendation? Put a motion forward to recommend for the recommendation?
Yes. Wouldn't. Sorry, Dawn. Yes, I'd like to move the motion that the recommendation be carried.
Thank you, Councillor Binks. Seconder, Councillor Lykos. All right, Councillor Binks, would you like to speak?
Other than to say this is we did discuss this with the officers beforehand, and these sort of tender contract processes are something that we do, and I'm glad to see it including in the architecture and design category as well, because it's a really important part to ensure the continued growth and betterment of our shire.
Thank you, Councillor Binks. Councillor Lykos. All right, any other councillor like to speak? If not, all those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. Page 57, 9.4, tender for contract number 20/21-39, provision of asset management services, panel of suppliers arrangement. Director Tingay.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. Similar to the previous item, this item seeks to appoint a panel of suppliers for the provision of asset management services. Following the advertising period, council received 17 submissions, and following the procurement and evaluation period, it is recommended to appoint 9 suppliers to the panel. There is a recommendation on page 58 of the agenda for council's consideration. Thank you, Mayor Rayburn.
Thank you, Director. Councillors, do you have any questions of the officer? If not, councillors, can I have a motion, please? And state your motion. Councillor Murray.
Can I move that the recommendation as outlined be adopted, please?
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Seconder, Councillor Dickinson. Councillor Murray, would you like to speak on that?
Thank you, Mayor. I just, I suppose, want to echo the point of the previous speaker about this panel being drawn up. I think it really increases the efficiency and effectiveness of our tender process, and it's a way in which we're trying to streamline that process and make it more effective. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Murray. Councillor Dickinson. Okay. Any other councillor like to speak? If not, all those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. Page 65, 9.5, review of investment and cash management policy. Director Roth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The investment policy gives us guidelines for the investment of council funds. And in doing so, we try to achieve a few things. A return on investment, obviously. We also try to invest in secure investments so that we manage the risk, and we do that by limiting the amount of money we can have with any one institution at any one time. Of recent times, non-financial objectives have become more in vogue, if you like, and I understand there has been some discussion amongst councils about how we might include that in the policy. So,
thank you, Director. Councillors, any other comment? Any questions you have of the officer? If not, councillors, can I have a motion, please? Councillor Murray.
Can I move the motion that the consideration of this policy, the investment and cash management policy, be deferred for a period of 6 months to allow for the inclusion of objectives and guidance for ethical investments, please?
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Is there a seconder of that, please? Councillor Binks. Okay, Councillor Murray, would you like to speak on that?
Well, I note that that this policy in its present form does not include some discussion of ethical investments and the importance of that for the Shire. And I believe that that matter is important, and that we ought to consider ethical investments in a more formal way in our policy settings. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Binks.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. I concur with Councillor Murray and believe it is our responsibility as a Shire to be able to lead the way in ethical investing. For a long time, the big four banks in Australia have had a fairly good grip on investment, and this breach, crosses environmental but also social, and the impact that some of those big banks have had on our farming communities is significant. So I think to be looking at the social and environmental ethical side of banking is a really great opportunity for the council to put a strong foot forward in our investing strategy. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Binks. Any other councillor like to speak? If not, all those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. Thank you. Page 73, 9.6, Councillor Induction Declaration. Executive Manager Bray.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, as you know, the new Local Government Act has brought in a lot of new requirements. So one of those is to undertake a formal induction program. And there's some regulations that the state government have set out in terms of all of the things that we need to cover in that induction in the first 6 months of your term since taking oath. So for the benefit of the gallery and those watching, we've been doing a very intensive induction program for every Tuesday since November. And so we've tried to pace it so that the councillors' brains don't get too fried, but I don't think we've succeeded with that.
No, you didn't.
Local government's a really complex beast, and there's a lot to bring them up to speed with so they can make really good decisions and advocate on behalf of the community. So the Local Government Act actually requires the councillors now to sign a declaration that they have completed all of the tasks and all of the things in the regulations that we need to do under the induction, and that declaration has to be signed in front of the CEO. So, Mr Mayor, there's a recommendation on page 73 to sign those declarations, and we thought for transparency reasons we would actually do that in the public meeting. So if the gallery can bear with us while the councillors sign their declarations, should this recommendation be moved?
Okay, councillors, can I have a motion, please? Councillor Haysberg, your motion is?
I'd like to support the recommendation on page 73 of the agenda.
Thank you very much, Councillor Haysberg. Seconder, Councillor Binks. All right, any discussion?
I'd just like to say thanks to the officers and the CEO for all their support. It's been a good induction, I'd say, and I think we could all agree we've felt very well supported, and so thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Binks.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. I would also like to thank General Manager. She's got a fabulous name, Dawn. General Manager Dawn Bray. Her knowledge and support has been exceptional, along with the staff. And as Councillor Haysberg mentioned, we've been incredibly well supported in this sphere. I would also like to even though that this is our completion of councillor induction training, I am incredibly supportive of ongoing training throughout our full councillor term to have us be the best councillors we can be for our community. So I look forward to ongoing training. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Binks. Any other comment, councillors?
Through you, Mayor, I'd also like to say thank you to both the CEO and to Dawn. It's not only the councillor induction, I suppose, that we're doing, but we are 6 brand new councillors. So it's probably a little bit more training than what you would have from existing. And also transitioning from or to a new local government act. So not only is there 6 brand new, but we're also working in 2 local government acts at the moment until we fully transition. And so the training has been intense and tiring and taken a lot of days, but I think it's all worth it. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other Councillor Councillor Lykos?
Yeah, just to reiterate what the other councillors have said, thank you very much. And yeah, it's all very new and there's a lot to learn. And yeah, I think the staff did a great job supporting us and presenting the information that we needed and helping us along the way when we, forgot something a month later and needed to be reminded about something. So yeah, it's been good. Thank you.
Okay, any other councillor Councillor Dickinson?
Thank you, Mayor. I must admit I was overwhelmed with it. The induction just seemed to go on and on forever, and I know that under legislation it has to be done, but in the future I wonder if it can be done differently, because we were cramming and I wonder how much of it we really retained. It was full on, but thank you to the staff for preparing it and taking us through it.
Okay, any other councillor?
Well, at the risk of being left by myself and saying nothing, I better thank the staff too. And I'd like to thank the staff because they've done a great job, all of them, in putting up with our ignorance and so on. So thank you. And yes, it's been difficult, but we've got there, Reg. So thank you, Mayor.
As a councillor myself, who was in 6 months prior to that, this has been unbelievable training. I must admit I was a councillor 25 years ago and we did not do the training we've done in the last 8 months. It's been phenomenal. It's been hard work, and I have to admit, and it's been tedious. We have been on edge at sometimes. We've had disagreements about the training, but we believe at the end of the day it's been beneficial to us. And I think for our community, it's been beneficial to you, because we are trying to represent you as the best of our ability, and that's the main thing we're trying to do. So all the best. And so, councillors, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against, declare it carried. So sorry, just going to take a couple of minutes. No, you got to sign the documents.
Thank you.
Running nerves.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you, Theo. Okay, page 114, 9.8, Council's Training and Development Expenses Request. Oh, this 9.7, sorry, 9.7, which is Councillor Sally Hayes-Burke, Executive Manager, Ray.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Council has a council expenses policy that outlines all of the expenses and allowances that we are required to provide councillors under the Local Government Act. And part of that is we're required under the Act to provide obviously training and development as per our induction program, but also some ongoing training as has already been mentioned this evening. So the council expenses policy basically says that each councillor has an initial allowance of $1,500 for individual training. And should a councillor wish to exceed that amount, a council resolution is required to provide that additional funding. And part of that is also to receive a report back from the councillor about the community benefit and what they've learned from that additional training and how the community has benefited. So this arose from the Vargo report in terms of transparency and just accountability for spending public money. And so councillors, before you is a report to request an additional $2,400 for Councillor Hayes-Burke so that she can continue with some training by McGowan Proprietary Limited in terms of coaching in supporting her in her development as a councillor. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Executive Manager. Do councillors have any questions of the officer? If not, Councillor, can I have a motion, please? Councillor Binks.
I'd like to move a motion on page 100 of the agenda.
Thanks, Reg.
Thanks, Mayor Rayburn. I'd like to move the motion on page 100 of the agenda.
Thank you, Councillor Binks. Is there a seconder? Councillor Horrigan. Councillor Binks, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. As I stated in my interim report, council report, I think it's called, at the beginning, I am a strong believer in our opportunities as all of us as councillors to take on education and learning, and I am a big supporter of Councillor Hayes-Burke's commitment to the community through pursuing further education. And I understand that, you know, maybe it looks a lot, but I think the benefit that the community is going to get in the long run is going to be well outweigh the initial investment by council. And it's also, I think, in this initial stage of a term, when we have so much to learn, that it's a real great opportunity to take on these extra training options. And I think reflecting on being a newly elected councillor, if we are to encourage and support a more diverse council, being supportive of councillors with less experience to take up additional education and training opportunities is a brilliant method to achieve that diversity and inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Binks. Councillor Horrigan.
Through you, Mayor, I second this motion, and there is a couple of points I'd like to make. So for this particular financial year, there is a $40,000 budget that was allocated towards councillor training, and that included the induction training plus any other external training. And it is forecasted that we will only be using 32 of that budget that was set aside, which obviously leaves 8,000. And speaking to other councillors, there's no other councillors that may be at this stage using that budget towards the end of the year. In coming to the conclusion as well, we have to have a look at that. Is the course that's been selected, it's not just any course, is it directly relevant to the councillor's role? Will the learning take place and be utilised during councillor's term of the office? Is it in the interest of the community? Is there sufficient budget allocation by council? And is it demonstrated to be public benefit? And just to give you a really brief rundown of the course that the Councillor Hayes-Burke's put forward, it's Ruth says that it is a complement to council's induction training and an investment in these seller programs will be to support the efforts of council to help councillors develop the leadership skills needed to thrive in public office. And I think that's a very important course. Being a new councillor and feeling that, I think that you can learn a lot. So that's why I'm in support of this one.
Thank you, Councillor Horrigan. Councillor Dickinson.
I'm wondering if an amendment can be made to this motion.
You can put amendment forward if you like. If the second mover and second agree to it, your amendment can be put forward. But if they don't, we'll go from there.
I'm all for self-education and education that is going to help not only the person who's applying for it, but also our community. However, I do believe that the person who is applying for this kind of funding needs to contribute something to it themselves in order to have some ownership to it. And my amendment would be that we fund not $2,400, but 50% of that being $1,200.
Okay, do we have a seconder of that? Oh, yeah, sorry. The mover and the second, do you agree with that amendment?
No, I don't, Mayor Raymond.
Okay.
I let her speak on it, on why?
No.
Okay, no, I don't.
No?
No, I don't agree.
Okay. Yeah. Is there a seconder of the motion? I will ask it again. Is there a seconder of the motion? If not, that motion lapses. So we go back to the original motion so we can have further discussion on the original motion, which was what recommendation was printed. Yes, Councillor Murray.
Through you, Mayor, can I speak? This is on the original motion.
Yes.
I'd like to support the original motion. I believe that this money is well spent. I believe there is a need to support new councillors and that this course has a clear public benefit. If I read from one of the relevant sections on the pamphlet, it says a new program designed especially for newly elected councillors to fast-track mastery of the skills needed to be an elected official, so they can participate in collaborative leadership as part of a collaborative leadership team and better outcomes for the community by an experienced councillor coach, Ruth McGowan, who's well known to all of us as councillors, I think. So I believe it, as a result, that this has clear benefit for the community and ought to be supported in full. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillor like to speak?
Yeah, just that I concur with what Councillor Murray said. I would have said the same thing.
Thank you. All right. Councillor Binks, do you want to finalise the discussion?
Just to conclude that I think the investment that Sally is making into, well, Councillor Haysberg is making into this course is her time to the course. I know it is a significant commitment up as well as her councillor duties. And so I see that as sufficient investment from her behalf. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, councillors, all those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. Thanks.
Can I call a division, please?
Can I division? All those in favour? This is Councillor Binks, Councillor Horrigan, Councillor Murray, Councillor Lykos and Councillor Rayburn. Those against? Councillor Dickinson. Thank you. All right. Page 114, 9.8. Councillor Binks, could you leave the room, please? Thank you. Councillor. The doors are slow. Councillor, training and development expense request for Councillor Laura Binks. Executive Manager Bray.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Binks has requested some additional funding as well, so I won't repeat the comments that I made for the first about the policy. So Councillor Binks has declared her interest in doing a Mastery of Business and Empathy with the Small Giants Academy, and she's seeking approval for the full $7,500 for that fee. She obviously gets the nominal $1,500. $590 of that has already gone on an ALGWA conference. And so the request is to fund the balance of the $6,590 to complete that training. And Councillor Binks, under the policy, would have to report back to Council and the community about the benefits and the learnings that she's had and how that benefits her as a councillor. So, councillors, you have a recommendation on page 114 to provide that additional funding and to receive that report from Councillor Binks when she's finished the course. Thank you.
Thank you, Executive Manager. Do councillors have any questions of the Executive Manager? If not, sorry, yes.
Just for my benefit, can you please tell us what was the budget remaining for councillor training?
Through you, Mr Mayor, the original budget was for $40,000 and in terms of the costs that we've expended and forecast, it's $32,000 that we've expended, so there's $8,000 left. That's not taking into account the motion or the recommendation that we've just had or the resolution that we've just had to fund the first application on item 9.7.
So if this were to be funded, how much would that take us over budget? So I haven't... Did you work that out?
$990.
Okay. Is that you finished, Councillor?
Thanks. Yeah.
Turn your mic off too, please. Okay, councillors, you have a motion, please. Do I have a motion? Councillor Horrigan.
I would like to move a motion different than what is on there. So that Council 1 endorse the provision of an additional $3,750 of training funding to Councillor Laura Binks for participation in the Mastery of Business and Empathy with the Small Giants Academy to balance budget constraints with the community benefit derived from participation in this course. And 2, receive a written report from Councillor Laura Binks upon the completion of the Mastery of Business and Empathy as required by section 17.2 of the Council Expenses Policy, identifying the key issues discussed, issues of relevance to the Shire and the community benefit gained by the completion of the course.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there a seconder of the motion? Councillor Lykos. Okay, Councillor Horrigan, you may speak.
Thank you. So the budget is $40,000 for training, plus what was approved just before. And I do want to make sure that we don't go over budget. So I'm very conscious of that. And I'm also not one to live life to the edge. And so I don't want to make it exactly 40,000 because we don't know what's going to come up between now and then. It's only surmising. The other part is, again, I went back to the policy considerations. And though I am a strong believer in training and development, and especially learning a lot about business in this particular area, I don't think it is a direct link to a councillor's role, although I think it will have a benefit to a councillor's role. And hence why, in this particular case, reducing the funding amount, I think, would only be fair to ensure that we're meeting the policy considerations.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Lykos.
Just to reiterating what Councillor Horrigan said, and I do believe that Councillor Binks will come back with a great and thorough report, as she does and we've seen tonight. And I do think that community will benefit from what she can learn from this. But I do see that there will be questions about the direct link between this course and her role. And I think considering our budget, and also not wanting to go right up to the last dollar and leave us with nothing in case something comes up. I see it as a fair thing to offer the $3,750. towards the course. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lycos. Is someone like Councillor Dickinson would like to speak?
I don't really see this as a budget issue. It's a matter of what the course is going to give to the applicant. And in this case, as I said before, I'm all for self-education, and I commend Councillor Binks for that. However, the organisation is not a registered training organisation. The course is not a master of business, it's a mastery of business. There's a difference in terminology. The list of lecturers that has been provided to me, and I think in round figures there were about 12, only 3 or 4 of them have actual formal qualifications to run the course. And I'd like everybody to bear those facts in mind when casting your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Councillor Murray. Mike, please.
Sorry, Mayor. I too am very concerned about this. Are we talking about the amendment, or we're talking about the amendment?
Yes.
I too am very concerned about the use of ratepayers' money for this particular course. I note that it's, as Councillor Dickinson said, it's not a higher education provider that is offering the course. It is a non-accredited course. The qualifications are not recognised with the Australian Qualifications Framework, and I do not see, particularly beyond the $1,000 that we have already provided for this particular course, I don't see the value in this particular course to the community or to ratepayers above that amount. So I would vote against this particular amendment. Thank you.
Councillor Haysbert.
I'd like to support the motion that Councillor Hourigan's put forward. I think I'm rapt that we have councillors like Laura who are keen to improve their skills, especially in what this course offers in decision-making, governance, operations, finance, communication, and community, and helping community meet its aspirations. All of these are features of the course, the Mastery of Business and Empathy. Laura's skills that she learns on this course will help strengthen the whole council team and in turn the community. Laura's committed a lot of time to this, and I think, in the first term of council, we do need all the support we get. This course encourages big thinking and expanding our horizons. So I think I'm grateful to Laura that she's going to be able to share her knowledge and education that she gains from this course. And I'm also grateful for Laura having attended the Australian Local Government Women's Association conference, because she came back with some great inspiration and further guidance to me as a councillor. So thank you. I think there'll be great community benefit for Laura, for the community, with Laura having done this course.
Thank you, Councillor Haysbert. All right, Councillor Hourigan, you have a chance to close.
I would like to close with that I don't think any of us have completed a certificate in local government ourselves, and I don't think any of our training has been accredited. I am a trainer and assessor, and so I know that when you go on their websites, they must declare their RTO numbers, etc., and agree that neither of the courses do that. But I don't think that necessarily means that it isn't a good course and that a councillor isn't going to have a benefit of it that's going to give back to their community. And I agree with a comment that was made tonight that they're completing the training in their own time and they are putting in their own effort, and the detail that's in there and and how time consuming it is, I think is really great. So that's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. All right, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Oh. Councillors, we have a tied vote of 3 for and 3 against. which as per our Rule 70 of our governance rule, I am using my casting vote to break the tie. And as I voted in the negative, I have to continue in that way. So I have to move that way that the motion be lost. Yes, you can call. Yeah, call. Councillor Hayes-Burke has called for a division. So all those in favour, please put your hands up. Councillor Horrigan, Councillor Hayes-Burke, Councillor Lykos. Those against, Councillor Dickinson, Councillor Murray and Councillor Rayburn. Okay. Page 127, 9.9, financial report 1 to 31 March 2021. Director off.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is a financial report for the 9 months to the end of March. In the papers, we've provided a set of financial statements and also some income expenditure by the various types of programs we operate. At this stage, at the end of March, we were in front of budget slightly, and we've used those figures in preparing the upcoming budget as well. So that's for Council's information.
Thank you, Director. Councillors, do you have any questions? If not, well, Councillor, can you make a, excuse me, can we have a motion, please? Councillor Murray, your motion is?
I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. The seconder? Councillor Lykos. Councillor Murray? Councillor Lykos? Any other councillor like to speak? If not, all those in favour? Against, the carried. Thank you. Page 140, 9.10, endorsement of Strathbogie Shire sexual harassment policy. CEO Solomon.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. In December last year, the Victoria Auditor General's offices, or VAGO as they are known, tabled a sexual harassment in local government report after auditing 5 councils and surveying 75 councils across Victoria. The audit report provided 11 recommendations to local governments in relation to identifying and acting on risk factors, regularly collecting data on the prevalence of sexual harassment, and the development of regular data collection methodology. In April this year, Council adopted an action plan which addresses the recommendations from that VAGO audit. The 5th item of the action plan was to develop a sexual harassment policy for Council that meets other recommendations in that action plan. So this important policy aims to create a culture where staff feel empowered to report unacceptable incidents and whereby complaints will be thoroughly and properly investigated. This safe environment is created by the policy initially defining what sexual harassment is, followed by the demonstrated steps that will be taken for any disclosure. Staff should always feel safe in their workplace, but equally feel safe that organisational leaders will support and manage their concerns appropriately. So you have a recommendation before you on page 140, councillors, to endorse this important policy. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, CEO. Councillors, do you have any questions of the CEO? If not, councillors, can I have a motion, please? Councillor Binks.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. I would like to move the motion as is printed on page 140 of the agenda, that the Council endorse the Strathbogie Shire Council sexual harassment policy and make it publicly available through our website.
Thank you, Councillor Binks. Councillor Lykos, the seconder. Councillor Binks, would you like to speak, please?
It's really great to see this policy in our agenda so soon after the VAGO report, which was put to us a couple of meetings ago, where it was found that there is quite a high level of sexual harassment occurring in local government. So to have a comprehensive policy in place is crucial for our staff and our community. So thank you to CEO Solomon and staff for doing this great policy.
Thank you, Councillor Binks. Councillor Lycos.
I'd just like to acknowledge the proactive work that the Strathbogie Shire staff do in this space, and look forward to seeing that continue and following all of these recommendations. And it's good to see that we're talking about it and recognising it and taking action.
Thank you. Any other councillor like to speak? Oh, sorry, Sally. Yes.
Right. I guess it's very important that we ensure that this is embedded in the workplace, this policy, and make sure that it's, I guess, audited maybe through the Audit and Risk Committee to make sure that it's actually having a real and meaningful impact, because, yeah, I was pretty devastated to hear about the levels of sexual harassment that had been going on in this workplace. But hopefully you can stamp that out.
Thank you, Councillor Haysbert. Any other councillor like to speak? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. Okay, page 156, 9.11, Goulburn Valley Regional Libraries Community Representative, Director Roth.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As the report indicates, council's represented on the board of the library by a councillor, which is Councillor Dickinson, an officer, which is myself, and a community representative, which was previously Director Tingay, who was not employed by us at that stage. So she's going to be very hard to replace, but we'll do our best. So there is a role statement attached to the council report, which identifies the type of background or interest that the library is seeking. So we'll advertise the role through all of our channels and hopefully get a good candidate.
Thank you, Director. Councillors, do you have any questions of the officer? If not, Councillor, can I have a motion, please? Councillor Dickinson, would you like to move them?
Yeah. Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'll move that the recommendation as noted there that council conduct a recruitment campaign to seek a community representative for Strathbogie Shire to sit on the board of the Goulburn Valley Regional Library Corporation.
Thank you, Councillor Dickens. Is there a seconder? Councillor Lycos. Councillor Dickinson, would you like to speak? Thanks.
Well, we do have a hard act to follow with Amanda Tingay over there, who was the previous representative. It's a pretty important role. It involves not just this shire, but Greater Shepparton and Moira shires. And to have 3 representatives from our own shire gives us good numbers. Already we've seen the new cupboard at Avenel put in, and I've been pushing for the mobile van to visit Ruffy, so it's a bit of an ongoing process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Councillor Lycos. Okay, any other councillor like to make a comment? If not, all those in favour, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. Reg, can you turn your mic off? Thanks. Okay, page 161, 9.12, 2020 local government elections, Strathbogie Shire Council election report, Executive Manager Bray.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, tonight we have the report from the Victorian Electoral Commission. Under the regulations, they have to prepare a report analysing the conduct of the election, the turnout, participation. And so we have quite a detailed report in the attachments outlined for you. So I have to say it was a rather challenging election to run because of COVID, obviously, and we actually didn't know that the election was going to be on until very late in the day. And we also had a new Local Government Act and new local government regulations that were only released a few months before the election was actually held. So that was quite a challenge for the VEC as well as council. I'd like to just point out a few statistics. And We actually had an 86% voter turnout, which is quite exceptional. It's higher than the 84% that Strathbogie had at the last election, and it's certainly higher than the 82% that we had statewide. So 86% is an exceptional turnout. It showed that there was a lot of interest, and I think the fact that we had so many candidates running in the election was also part of that, the reason for that voter turnout, as well as the fact that people were at home during COVID and they wanted some entertainment reading candidate statements and participating. So, councillors, just in front of you on page 162 is just a recommendation that we note the election report from the VEC and that we make it available on the website just for transparency. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Executive Manager. Councillors, any questions of the officer? If not, councillor, can I have a motion? Yes, sir.
Just a question. Do you not think it's a reflection of the quality of the candidates?
Of course, Councillor Murray. From a governance perspective, we have to be neutral though, so I can't comment.
Thank you, Executive Manager. Well said. Councillors, can I have a motion, please? Councillor Murray, motion is?
We adopt item 9.12 recommendation that council note the local government election report prepared by the VEC and make the election report available on the Shire's website.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Is there a seconder? Councillor Lykos. Councillor Murray, would you like to further your comments?
Well, only to correct some figures. I think that you may have misaligned. 86% of people in Strathbogie voted in this election. 84% was the state average, and 81 was the 2016 figure. So we're obviously doing much better than the previous council in terms of our voter turnout, and I would put it down to the quality of the candidates, no doubt.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Lykos.
I concur.
Any other Councillor Horrigan?
I would. I'd just like to point out that I think these figures are reflecting that there is more and more interest in the community regarding their local government, and I think that. Well, I hope that they're happy with the interest that we're giving back to them with their community engagement, etc. So the fact that everyone turned out to vote, well, a lot. Sorry, not everyone. Yeah, I just think it's good. It means that they want to be involved more, which is really nice.
Thank you, Councillor Horrigan. Any other councillor like to speak? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. Page 222, 9.13, minutes of the Tourism, Arts, Culture Advisory Group, previous meeting held on the 20th of 20 and 2021. Director Tingo.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. Now that we're moving out of COVID, it is exciting that our advisory groups can get back up and running again. So this report is to note the minutes of two meetings, one held on Thursday, the 17th of September 2020, and the other one on Monday, the 29th of March 2021. And the advisory committee have a lot of exciting things going on. So well done to them and keep up the good work. Thank you, Mayor Rayburn.
Thank you, Director. Councillors, any questions of the officer? If not, councillor, can I have a motion, please? Councillor Binks, your motion is?
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. I'd like to move the motion on page 222 of the agenda that council notes the minutes of Tourism, Arts and Culture Advisory Group meetings held on Thursday 17th September 2020 and Monday 29th of March 2021.
Thank you, Councillor Binks. Is there a seconder? Councillor Murray. Councillor Binks, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. I would like to acknowledge the members of the advisory group that are in the room tonight and thank them for their participation, and and the past participants as well. It's really great. Along with Councillor Murray, am on the advisory group as council representatives, and we've had two meetings since, and only one of them is tabled in these minutes. So it's exciting to see these meetings becoming more regular and that we're able to achieve things again. And it is exciting, as Director Tingay pointed out. So thank you.
Okay, Councillor Murray.
No, sorry, formally.
Okay, thank you. Any other councillor like to make comment? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. Thank you. Okay, page 234, 9.14, Goulburn Murray Regional Prosperity Plan, Director Tingay.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. Council has been approached to become a signatory, of which we have signed to the Goulburn Murray Regional Prosperity Plan. So essentially, this plan and the vision of the plan is to generate an additional 150 million gross regional product per annum by 2036 for the Goulburn Murray region through the economic inclusion, prosperity and shared value of Yorta Yorta and First Nations people. The plan was put together after thorough consultation undertaken throughout the Goulburn Murray area. Whilst the majority of the traditional owners of our land within the local government, our local government area are the Taungurung people, there is a small component of our municipality that the Yorta Yorta people are the registered Aboriginal party for. Council officers have consulted with the Taungurung Land and Waters Council before signing signing up to this plan through the statement of intent, and the Taungurung Land and Waters Council have advised that they were comfortable with council becoming a signatory to this prosperity plan. There is a recommendation on page 234 of the agenda for council's consideration. Thank you, Mayor Rayburn.
Thank you, Director. Councillors, do you have any questions of the officer? Yes, Councillor Haysbert.
Director, can you please just, how will the money be, how will we get this gross income? Is it going to be through grants or?
Yeah, so it's around generating economic activity, particularly within our Indigenous community, and also for the youth of the traditional owners. So there are a number of signatories to this agreement, and it's about looking at infrastructure and economic development to generate the additional income.
Thank you, Director. Councillors, can I have a motion, please? Councillor Haysbert.
I'll support the motion on page 234 of the agenda.
Thank you, Councillor. Seconder, Councillor Binks. Councillor Haysbert.
I think it's really great that we're starting this conversation with our First Nations people, and I think soon we'll be looking to start an MOU with the Taungurung clan, which is in the pipeline, I believe, and will be coming to council very soon. So I look forward to continuing those discussions, and yes, it's very important.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Binks.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. Nigel Nguyen, who was one of the speakers at the ALGWA conference that I attended, spoke a lot about acknowledgements of country and how we can work with our Indigenous people to truly start to set the record straight on how they've experienced colonialisation of this land. And I see this motion as a really great step in the right direction in supporting Indigenous people of our region to have a prosperous future. Thank you, Mayor Rayburn.
Thank you, Councillor Binks. Any other councillor like to speak? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, declare it carried. Okay, page 239, 9.15, Community Grants Program Guidelines 2021-2022 and establishment of Community Grants Program Assessment Panel. Director Tingay.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. So an exciting one for any representatives of community groups who might be in our gallery or watching tonight is that should council endorse some of the changes, hopefully the grants will be opening on the 1st of June and closing on the 30th of June. So as part of this report, we've made a couple of minor changes to the guidelines for the 2021-2022 program. Essentially, once applications close on the 30th of June, assessment process will be undertaken with recommendations presented to the council meeting on the 17th of August. We have made one change, one probably significant change in regards to joint applications from multiple entities. So that be if there is an application that is coming from community groups for the same project, that they have collaboration and sign off by all parties for that particular project, and that they can apply for one grant rather than 3 entities applying for 3 grants. We also will be asking applicants to outline environmental impacts and benefits of their project as part of the application process. We're also looking to implement the terms of reference for a community grants program assessment panel, and essentially that assessment panel will undertake a thorough evaluation of each of the grant applications. There is a recommendation on page 239 for council's consideration. Thank you, Mayor Rayburn.
Thank you, Director. Councillors, do you have any question of the officer? If not, councillors, can I have a motion, please? Councillor Murray, your motion is?
My motion is that we adopt the revised community grants program guidelines. We endorse the terms of reference as stated, and we release the community grants guidelines on the Shire Council website.
Thank you, Councillor. Seconder? Councillor Lykos. Councillor Murray, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say to reiterate some of the changes that we've made there with to improve the partnerships or the possibility of partnerships between groups so that they're all on the same page in terms of their application, and they all sign their application if they're making a joint one. Also, that we'll have one project and not multiple applicants for a single project, and we'll try and make the process ongoing for 12 months rather than the 8 that we had before, I think, thereabouts, and that gives people more time to acquit their project. And also that I think it's important that we elevated the importance of the environment in terms of the application process, and that we support that these things support our community directions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Lykos.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, just a reminder to our community groups to take full advantage of these grants. If you're unsure of your eligibility, get in touch with the council, ask the questions. There's always someone here that can help you go through this. Sometimes if you're not IT literate, difficult process on Smarty grants, but there's always someone here to help. So please just get in touch if you have an idea and get the support, and let's get more projects happening in our community.
Thank you, Councillor Lykos. Any other councillor like to speak? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Page 261, 9.16, Advocacy Support Roadmap for Quality Dementia Care. Director Tingo.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. Dementia Australia has written to councils and also a number of councils calling on our support to advocate to the federal government on behalf of the 500,000 people living with dementia and the 1.6 million people involved in their care. Dementia Australia have developed a quality roadmap, and they would like us to advocate to the federal government for the implementation of that roadmap. That roadmap basically seeks to reflect a number of recommendations that were made in regards to dementia as part of the Royal Commission's final report. The recommendation on page 261 asks Council to advocate to our local federal members of Parliament by writing a letter of support to the government to implement Dementia Australia's roadmap for quality dementia care.
Within the attachments of the agenda, that draft letter has been crafted, and also in addition, our officers have spoken to our healthcare providers to seek their endorsement, which they have with a couple of minor amendments. Thank you, Mayor Rayburn.
Thank you, Director. Councillors, do you have any questions of the officer? If not, councillors, can I have a motion, please? Councillor Reid, Dickinson. Is there a seconder? Councillor Lykos. Councillor Dickinson, would you like to speak?
Do you want me to move the motion or are you speaking for it?
Oh, sorry, you move your motion. Sorry, I apologise.
I'll go with the recommendation that council advocate to local federal members of parliament by writing a letter of support to the government to implement Dementia Australia's roadmap for quality dementia care.
Thank you. All right, now would you like to speak? You can speak now.
Thank you. As I mentioned earlier today, this is something close to my heart, and I look around this room and there's a fair few of us who aren't that far away from it, from this issue. It's an awful issue. It's a disease. I had a sister-in-law who was diagnosed at age 50 and was gone at age 60. I currently have a brother, a couple of years younger than me, who is in full-time care. So for me, this is an absolute no-brainer. Let's get behind it.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Councillor Lykos.
Yeah, I am very close to my heart too. I work in aged care currently. Most of you would know I'm a nurse, and dealing with patients with dementia is a very different type of care that's required, and it's really difficult, and we need this support. And yeah, it's a no-brainer. We need to support this and advocate for the people in our community that are suffering from this disease and their families. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lykos. Any other councillor like to speak on this? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against, declare it carried. Okay, page 270, 9.17, review of community funding and investment policy. Director Tim Gay.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. This item is basically, as it explains, to review our community funding and investment policy. The policy is up for review at the moment. There have been some minor amendments that have been made to the policy, including staff position title updates, date updates, and review date of the policy. This policy is reviewed every year, and officers are proposing that the policy be reviewed now every 2 years. There's a recommendation on page 270 for Council's consideration. Thank you, Mayor Rayburn.
Thank you. Director, councillors, any questions of the officer? If not, councillor, can I have a motion, please? Councillor Haysberg, your motion is?
I'd like to move the motion on page 276 of the council papers, just with a slight amendment to the policy. The policy's in our papers, and just under the objectives section of the policy, I'd like to just note that the objectives are also, point F, in line with the values of council. So that probably sounds a bit hard for people to understand.
Thank you, Councillor Haysberg. Is there a second of Councillor Murray? Councillor Haysberg, you can now explain your alteration.
I just would like community initiatives to stay, I guess, in line with the council policy and all the engagement that we're doing, and so that they have a benefit for the overall community, especially now as we embark on our new council plan with the community.
Thank you. Councillor Murray.
No, I'd just like to support that addition to make sure that our community funding and investment policy are in line with our objectives, and that it's clearly stated that that should be the case. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Any other councillor like to speak on this one? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against, declare it carried. Okay, page 277, 9.18, Strathbogie Shire Council's response to the Australian Rail Track Corporation, ARTC, proposed planning scheme amendment. Director Tingay.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. So the ARTC has been in touch with us and in touch with many other people across Euroa and also more broadly in regards to their voluntary exhibition for GC 157 for the planning scheme amendment. Strathbogie Shire Council acknowledges that this final submission date was the 17th of May. However, Council sought confirmation and approval by the ARTC to have an extension to the submission date to allow for Council to hear and discuss Council's submission to the voluntary exhibition period to the 26th of May 2021. As part of the planning scheme amendment, the amendment is a change to the planning scheme, and basically the proposed amendment introduced site-specific controls via incorporated document and specific control overlays, meaning the project can progress without the need for additional planning permits, subject to conditions being met to the satisfaction of the Minister for Planning. The ARTC have provided Council on an update of the progress of their planning scheme amendment, and the ARTC are currently undertaking the voluntary exhibition process for amendment GC 157, covering the Inland Rail project all the way up to Albury. The final copy of the ARTC's amendment will be sent to the Minister for Planning in due course. The ARTC have requested two things of Council with a letter that was directly written to us. One was a letter of support in relation to the actual project from Strathbogie Shire Council that includes our views and feedback on the Inland Rail project, and then secondly the planning scheme amendment and the supporting documentation, and that was accompanied with the draft incorporated document and the draft explanatory report. As part of the agenda papers, there is a draft letter that has been developed for Council's consideration tonight. And in the review of the relevant documentation, in summary, our response highlights in principle support for the project, the importance of continual and genuine community engagement, the need for a focus on movement and connectivity of vehicles and pedestrians, and ensuring the best outcome for our community. Mayor, there is a recommendation on page 278 of the agenda for Council's consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Councillors, do you have any questions of the Director? If not, councillors, can I have a motion, please? Councillor Murray, you would like to state your motion, please?
I move that we adopt the recommendation listed on page 278. That is, the Council provides feedback to the Inland Rail project, proposing planning scheme amendment and supporting documents, draft incorporated document and draft explanatory report around the following key points. In principle, support for the project, the importance of continued and genuine community engagement, the need for a focus on movement and connectivity of vehicles and pedestrians, and ensuring the best possible outcome for our community.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Murray. Is there a seconder? Councillor Horrigan. Okay, Councillor Murray, would you like to speak? You can.
To the motion. Is it too late?
No.
Okay. If you'll accept this amendment, I put this to the first and seconder, that in the letter, I'm still concerned about the potential lack of input that the community will have in terms of what the final designs are. And I know that the planning scheme amendment is a tool to guide what the construction works, but I think in the letter, I would like to say that I would like the assurance from ARTC that the community will continue to have input into the final design. I would like that statement in the letter, that request.
Okay, is there a seconder of the amendment? Councillor Binks, Councillor, actually, do the mover and the seconder agree with the amendment?
Can I just ask the mover of the amendment to state again what she would like to amend, or what the dot point might be? So
Okay. Okay, so
you got it in a written form.
I haven't actually, no. I'm just winging this. So potentially at the end of the letter, it could say, could we please have written confirmation that the community will continue to have input into the final designs as part of the planning scheme amendment. I mean, we can only ask.
Councillor Murray.
Can I ask another question? The motion that I've moved is the recommendation on page 278.
Yep.
Is it the intention of the mover of the amendment that a fifth dot point be added to the bottom underneath, ensuring the best possible outcome for our community? Would you like to add a dot point under that which says what you said before, whatever? What was that you said before?
Ensuring that the community has input into the final designs. Because I know we've received the community's, the ARTC has received a lot of objections from the community in relation to this planning scheme amendment, and it's based on their concerns about not having oversight of the final designs. And so,
just can I accept that as part of the motion?
If you can, if you like.
I'm happy as the mover to accept that.
Is the seconder okay with that? All right. So can we have that written?
Yeah, I'll work that out for you.
Okay, Councillor Murray, you may now speak. He has input into the final design as part of the PSA. All right. Okay, we now have that. The CEO's I believe the CEO's got it in the written form, so we can go forward. So, Councillor Murray, you okay to accept that as part of your amendment, part of your original motion?
Yes.
Okay, and Councillor Horrigan is. Okay, now you may speak.
Thank you. Look, we have been...
Can you turn your mic off, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
This council has been a strong advocate for community engagement on this matter, and we have championed that in numerous meetings and in numerous contacts with the ARTC. At times, we have been critical of the ARTC and the way they have gone about their consultation process. And unlike other bodies, we have maintained our voice and have not given away the right to say things when we thought things weren't proceeding appropriately. So there are other groups and so on who are taking a different approach, and that's up to them. But we are trying to maintain our influence maintain our influence on the process and maximise that opportunity to have an input. And I think this really is an attempt to do that. And I recommend the motion to you.
Okay, Councillor Horrigan.
Through you, Mayor, I would also like to thank the community members of Euroa and surrounds for all the pushing that they have been doing with the ARTC. And it is good to know that they are being heard according to the new Euroa project reference guide, which is now acknowledging that they are looking at two options. And I think it's all the hard work of the community members that have got us to this stage. And so I agree with the amendment because although I believe that we should, although I believe we're winning by the way that we have been responding to the ARTC, I think it's a good move from what we've done today to show that we're also working with them, but also making sure that they're staying in touch with the community and sharing their designs. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Horrigan. Any other? Councillor Hutchberg, would you like to speak?
Thanks for that. Yeah, from what I understand, if we don't take this opportunity to have an influence,
then the wool will just be pulled over our eyes, and it'll go straight to the minister without us having any opportunity to influence the planning scheme amendment. So I guess by doing this and putting forward our amendments in this letter that's been put together by officers, it will hopefully give the community the best opportunity to have input and assurance from the ARTC.
Thank you, Councillor Hayes-Burke. Any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Binks.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. So following on from Councillor Hayes-Burke, whilst our position may differ from others, it's about the opportunity to influence this tool of planning that is being the planning scheme amendment. So our submission to that is to try and influence it for the best outcome for our community. We acknowledge that, well, I certainly do, and I believe my fellow councillors do, that ARCT hasn't had the best record with being transparent, and by adding Councillor Hayes-Burke's additional point that it is requiring and requesting of them to be transparent with their designs, which is where they have been lacking in the past. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Binks. Any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Lycos.
Yeah, I just want to assure the community, and especially the community of Euroa, that this is a hot topic. It's something that we as councillors have discussed at length. Every week it comes up. We're working hard to advocate and influence. So just be reassured that we're doing the very best and the most that we can, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lycos. Any other councillor? Dickinson? No. Okay. Before I get Councillor Murray to sign off on this one, I'd just like to make a comment that we as a council have always been listening to our community. We've been advocating to always try and have the area around the railway station, the precinct. We talk in the precinct area. We don't talk in under or overpasses. We mainly talk about the precinct because we believe that's what should come out of that place, is a proper redeveloped precinct. Whether the community selects an over or underpass, I don't particularly worry about, as long as the whole precinct is done up for our community. And that's what I'll always be advocating, and I'll continue to do that while I'm mayor, and even when I'm not a mayor, I'll be a councillor. So I'll always continue to do that. One thing last year, the former council did something which we were lucky enough as this council in this community, was last year we did not sign the mutual confidential agreement with ARTC like other councils did. By not signing this agreement, council were able to continue to be open and transparent with their community and to continue to freely advocate on the behalf of our community without any restrictions. Action include reports to council, letter to the ARTC requesting genuine engagement, and presentation at the recent State Senate inquiry. It's just a number of events that we've been trying to advocate for our community. And as you know, I'll continue to advocate, and I've been talking to the CEO of ARTC just the other day. He's coming down the next couple of weeks to discuss further stuff with us, which we are very privileged and honoured to have him here. And Dr. Helen Haynes will be coming down also when I have the meeting with the CEO to go through issues further. So to say that your council is not advocating for its community, to me, is a no-no. We are very much here for you, and that's what we will continue to do. So, Councillor Murray, I'll leave it in your hands to close the discussion.
Thank you, Mayor. There's probably not a lot that I need to say. People have spoken there, but other than we have been working hard, as the Mayor has said, to encourage and cajole and coerce the ARTC into some engagement with the community and a higher level of engagement, not just informing community members and that sort of level, but a much higher level of engagement with them, and to maintain some transparency in terms of their decision making. We are focused on, as the Mayor said, a holistic view of the development and a concentration on the precinct itself rather than one particular outcome. So we would like to see the community's expectations and their desires met, and we'd like to see that met in a sort of a broad range development in terms of the precinct. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against, declare it carried. Okay. Page 287, 9.19, request of variation to contract number 9-20-06 Longwood Ruffy Road Safety Upgrade Stage 1. Director Tingay.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. Item 9.19 is to request that Council endorse a variation to contract 19-20-06 of $260,045.24 for the completion of Stage 1 of the Longwood Ruffy Road Safety Upgrade. This variation has arisen due to the need to undertake a revised pavement design and further road stabilisation works. Overall, in terms of the budget for this project, it still is under budget. However, the variations are above the delegation of the CEO, and we are also bringing this to Council for transparency. There is a recommendation on page 287 of the agenda for Council's consideration. Thank you, Mayor Rayburn.
Thank you, Director. Any councillor have any questions? Questions of the officer? If not, councillors, can I have a motion, please? Councillor Binks, would you state your motion, please?
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. I am moving the motion as written on page 287 of the agenda that Council endorse a variation to contract number 19-20-06 of the stated amount for the Longwood Ruffy Road Safety Upgrade.
Thank you, Councillor Binks. Is there a seconder of that motion? Councillor Murray. Councillor Binks, would you like to speak upon it?
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. Yes, I am very familiar with this road. It's a famous one in the Mount Wombat ward. So I am glad to see that the necessary funds are being allocated to it to have it completed to the highest level to stabilise the pavement. And I'm also encouraged that we're still coming in under budget. So thank you for that, Director Tingay.
Thank you, Councillor Binks. Councillor Murray. Okay, any other councillor like to speak upon this? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against, declare it carried. Thank you. Page 291, 9.20, determination of mayoral and council allowance. Executive Manager Bray.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. As Councillor Horrigan mentioned before, we are now operating under two local government acts. And the old Local Government Act stated that councillors are paid an allowance, and that allowance is identified by the Minister through what's called an order in council. We have a new Local Government Act that talks about council allowances being determined by the Victorian Independent Remuneration Tribunal. However, the Minister hasn't asked that tribunal to sit and to consider the new councillor allowances as yet. So we've been directed by Local Government Victoria that we still have to apply the old parts of the Act, even though they're technically not in play at the moment. And we have to do a review of the councillor and mayoral allowances. It's a very formal process, so it's called what we call a Section 223 process under the old Local Government Act, where we have to exhibit, in principle, the allowances that we set for councillors and ask for community submissions for a period of 28 days. People can request to make a verbal submission to council to support their written submission, and then we have to go back to council to actually make a determination on those allowances. In terms of the allowances, there's 3 categories that are set out by the Minister for Local Government. We're in category 1, which is for small rural councils. And the bandwidth of payments for the mayor is up to $62,884. And for councillors between $8,833 up to $21,049. The previous council determined that the higher rates be applied to the mayor and the councillor allowances to reflect the amount of work that councillors have to do week in, week out. And also the Act says that the councillors are also paid an equivalent of 9.5% superannuation guarantee. So what is proposed on page 292 in the recommendation is that we maintain the mayoral and the councillor allowances at the current rate, noting that they have not been reviewed by the Minister for nearly 2 years now. So there's been no indexation, and that we go through the Section 223 process, we exhibit the proposed allowances for 28 days and then have a committee of council meeting on the 29th of June if that is required. But also point 5, if we don't have any written submissions, then we don't need to have that special council meeting, and that the matter be referred to another meeting at the end of June. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Executive Manager. Any questions of the officer? Okay, councillors, can I have a motion, please? Councillor Binks, can you state your motion, please?
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. I am moving the motion on page 292 of the agenda, and I won't read it as Manager Bray has just read it. And it's long.
Thank you, Councillor Binks. There is a seconder. Councillor Lycos. Okay, Councillor Binks, would you like to speak on it?
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. I've been quite vocal and advocating in a more fair and equitable system of payment across local councils in Victoria. It is an interesting method that has been set up in the previous Local Government Act, where we were scaled as to the size of a shire, whereas the work of a councillor is, I would say, fairly consistent regardless of the size of the shire. I've spoken to Minister Sean Lean, who is the Minister for Local Government, directly on this matter, and he has assured me that under the new system, when he sets that in motion, there will be an opportunity to perhaps correct the scales of balance on this matter. So,
thank you, Councillor Binks. Councillor Lycos.
Yeah, there was a comment there about the councillors last year adopting this and deciding that they would go with the higher band to reflect the amount of work that we do as councillors. I don't believe that really reflects. A couple of dollars an hour doesn't really reflect. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to June.
All right. Any other councillor like to speak? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. Okay. Page 299, 9.21, road exchange, unnamed road reserve, Gilgari Farm. Director Tingo.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. So to bring councillors up to date with this item, back in March at the council meeting, council resolved a number of things, but one of those was to proceed to undertake a road exchange at Gilgale Farm over on Heathcote Nagambie Road, and that road exchange be undertaken for a private
private property in the western part of Lot 8 of TP 009-233Q, unnamed road, as shown in the attachments within our agenda. Following the formal advertising period of this road exchange, Council received one submission objecting to the exchange. This objection was heard on the 11th of May, so last week. Following the hearing of that objection, officers were to, and the committee were to provide a report back to Council in regards to how Council would like to proceed given the objection. There is a recommendation on page 300 of the agenda that Council note the submissions received as part of the public exhibition period, and that following the consideration of the submission received, that Council proceed with the exchange of road reserve adjacent to Lot 3 TP 009-233Q for part of Lot 8 on TP 009-233Q with the owner of 4316 Heathcote Nagambie Road, with all costs to be borne by the owner. There is recommendations. There's three parts to that recommendation on page 300 for Council's consideration. Thank you, Mayor Rayburn.
Thank you, Director. Councillors, any question of the officer? If not, can I have a councillor? Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Dickinson, your motion is?
As read. I will go by the motion as read by Officer Tingay. Do you want me to read it out again?
That's okay, Councillor Dickinson. Any other Councillor Lycos would like to second it? Councillor Dickinson, when you like to speak, thanks.
I actually think this is a bit of a win for the community, because there must be so many unnamed roads within our shire that the public don't realise that they have access to. And by approving this motion and by putting up signage to say that the public do have access can only be helpful.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Councillor Lycos, any other councillor like to speak on this? If not, I've turned it off. Okay, there's no other discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? The carried. All right, got one more. Page 313, 9.22, Business Management System, CEO Solomon.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. This is our monthly report that we provide to Council and the community to just keep track of our business management system reports, which covers a range of program areas that the organisation is focusing on. One of the areas that work continues and has continued for some time is in ensuring our customers are kept informed of progress of their requests and the action taken by Council in response to their issue. The customer request analysis report for April shows another reduction this month in the number of outstanding tasks from 2018 and 2019 from 28 to 26. And whilst we still have some way to go, it's great to see that those figures are now consistently trending down. We've also had the number of remaining requests is relatively stable at just over $900, while the number of outstanding requests is up slightly higher this month to 508. And this was because 840 new requests were received and 828 requests of the service were completed during the period that they were required to. So again, we consistently focus on this area, and it's one of the areas that we will continually do to improve our service to our community. So for noting on page 313 of the report. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, CEO. Councillors, any question of the CEO? If not, Councillor, can I have a motion, please? Councillor Horrigan, your motion is?
I would like to move the recommendation on page 313.
Thank you very much. Seconder? Councillor Lykos, do you want to speak on this, Councillor Horrigan?
I would. I would like to speak that I suppose a lot of, in quite a few meetings, that's been a little bit of heat regarding this particular report for the officers, and I want to assure that there is processes that have just really started to work, where we're getting weekly reports, councillors themselves on what's being followed up, etc. I also would like just to make a note that on the Strathbogie Shire website, .vic.gov.au, on the right-hand side down the bottom, there is a button you can press to report an issue. If you are able to use computers, etc., this is a really good way to do it, because you actually then also get an email to help you follow up. And you can, lodge the request. As I know, sometimes phone calls and emails could go missing. This way it is actually all tracked in a nice, orderly fashion. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Lykos?
Yeah, I think it's just good to know that it's not only great that we're closing off and completing a lot of these tasks and sort of catching up, I suppose, but it's great to see so many requests coming in, because it also means that our community is either talking to their ward councillors, or that the community members are able to access the website and to, put in their complaints or put in their requests or ask the questions they need to ask. So it shows that our communication system is working, and it can only improve.
Thank you, Councillor Lykos. Any other councillor like to speak? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. Okay. CEO, have we have any notices of motion?
Through you, Mayor, no, there are none.
Notices of recession?
Through you, Mayor, again, there are no notices of recession.
Urgent business?
Through you, Mayor, no urgent business.
Confidential business? I'm just going to go formally, I'm sorry. So that closes the meeting for tonight. For councillors, the next ordinary meeting of the Strathbogie Shire Council is scheduled to be held on the 8th of June, starting at 4 p.m. to hear the budget submissions at the Aroa Community Centre. Please note, once again, this is a public gallery, will be open to the public. And of that, I am an apology. I will not be at that meeting. So Councillor Deputy Mayor Lykos, you'll be running that meeting, and I'll leave that in your capable good hands. And the meeting is now closed at 8:25. But to the people in the gallery, thank you for coming tonight. We very much appreciate. And to the people who've been watching us, thank you for tuning in. But to the people in the gallery, you are allowed to stay back and have a cup of tea with us on our first night back into the real world again. So thanks everybody for attending, and thanks councillors and officers.